South Africa and Italy, match number 2, folks. After last week's 24-42 result, you feel like the Springboks will want a bit of a bigger scoreline? Maybe South Africa's getting into that position which the All Blacks always used to be, that you'd score, like most teams, you put 42 points on them and you're not unhappy about that. But it still felt like that didn't quite meet what a lot of the predictions said the way that game was going to go. The Italians performed better than I think many expected. Apologies if you can hear the rain. The heavens have absolutely opened here in Auckland, but supposedly in Caberca this weekend it's going to be fine, and we're going to see a much changed Springbok lineup take on again, a still pretty young Italian team, which has also made a few changes of its own. We'll go through the squads which have been named, some of the stats, predictions. You guys can let us know your thoughts on how Game 2 is going to go. I mentioned Rassie has made a few changes to this lineup. Some of them are pretty exciting. Some of them are going to come under the microscope. Du Toit, Marks and Lowe. Just the one change in the front row with Big Thomas the Tank Engine getting a crack at loose head. By all accounts, his club season's gone pretty well, so fingers crossed he can recapture some of that form in the green and gold for the Springboks. It's an all-new lock and duo with Morat and Nokia. Morat is one of the guys who's going to come under the spotlight for sure. South Africa's got so many good locks that guy often gets singled out as a guy who should be further down the pecking order than he is, but Barry's captain for this one. So I seem to remember he always puts in pretty good defensive numbers. So we'll see if he's able to do something similar against the Italians. But all things being considered, one would expect the South Africans to have like more possession and territory and be putting in more impressive attacking numbers than needing to put in a huge defensive shift. But yeah, the Italians still scored a few tries last week, so still need to defend. Marco van Staden keeps his spot. Likewise, there's Jasper Wiese, but there is a change in the back row with Steph Du Toit being back. That's also a bit of good news. He missed last week. They did say he wasn't far away from being back fit, and he is back fit, so that is certainly welcome news for the Boks. One guy who's not back fit is Theo Kolisi. It did sound like in the press conference that he was kind of touch and go as to whether he would be fit to play, especially with the game being played, you know, kind of where he grew up. But yeah, no, they didn't want to risk him for this one, which makes sense in the scheme of things. It's still a long season to go. We've only just started the season in terms of the internationals down in the Southern Hemisphere. Backs-wise, Williams and Libbok is a pretty exciting 19 combo. Pollard had a little bit of that Springbok spotlight put on him last week as well. You know, for potentially not running the back line as well as some of the other guys like Libbok and Sasha van Ngomazulu have the potential to do in terms of unlocking some of those backline plays. So we'll see what Libbok can do with his chance in charge. The midfield of Esterhuizen and Moody, I feel like, is a pretty direct running combo. Esterhuizen with his size and Moody with his speed could potentially exploit some weaknesses if they can find them in the Italian defence, although Menangelo in particular is a very good defender, both tackler and over the ball. Wings, Mapimpi and Van der Merwe. Mapimpi's another one of the guys who's back from injury, finished the season in pretty good form in URC terms, and then Van der Merwe is going to add to, I think it's only one Springbok cap, so congratulations to him. Getting a job in the Springboks wings when you've got Colby and Arendse and whatnot around is particularly hard work. You have to be very good to get that spot. And then Willie Leroux, 100th cap for him. Massive congratulations. Speaking of the guys who go under the spotlight, Willie has had large periods of his career where he's been, I don't want to say public enemy number one, but certainly selection question mark number one. I feel like that's died down a lot over the last couple of years, but there was certainly a large period where his spot with the Boks was, at least with the fan base, considered not to be a guaranteed selection. Bench-wise, Jan Hendrik Wessels switches to the number 16 jersey for this one instead of the propping replacement. You got Ox on the bench and you got Big Intelabakanye on the bench. So look for some bomb squad action from those three fellas. Kobus Wiese and Evan Roos are the other two forward replacements. Roos kind of benefits from the fact that you guys have had a few other injuries in terms of your number 8s, so we'll see if he can make the most of the opportunity. 3 backs on the bench with Reinach, Feinberg and Ngomazulu, and then a potential debut for Ethan Hooker, who's another guy who found himself in pretty good form. It will be interesting to see where they slot him around the park, because I seem to remember that Rusty singled him out potentially being a midfielder, even if he played a fair bit of his URC rugby in the outside backs this season just gone. For the Italians, I mentioned they have made a few changes. Some of them are injury enforced. There's no Lorenzo Canone this week. He misses out at number 8 because of the injury sustained last week. They've still got Fischetti, Di Bartolomeo, and Ferrari as their front row. These guys will need to be strong at scrum time because the Boks got a fair bit of dominance there last week. Canone and Zambonin, that's Nicolo, the brother of Lorenzo, are still the lock and duo. So there's one Canone down, but one Canone remains. And then Big Sebastian there at number 6. He's pretty familiar with South African rugby, so he'll be looking to put on a big shift. Zuliani was quite incredible last week for the Italians. He had a couple of turnovers won. He was one of their top ball carriers with 9 and made 20 tackles. He was certainly helping to keep the game closer than it was predicted to be. Geez, that rain is really coming down. And then Ross Vincent gets promoted to number 8, having been on the bench last week. Backs-wise, Alessandro Garbisi is another one who gets promotion to the starting role, not the other Garbisi. Paolo is not with the squad, remember, the number 10, so we don't get to see the brothers in action, but Alessandro certainly had a few caps for Italy in his time. He's an attacking mind at number 9, and then Dare is going to get another chance to pull the strings at number 10. I thought he did pretty well last week because he's another guy who doesn't get that many chances to get starts for Italy. Zanon and Menincello continue on in the midfield. Trula switches to the wing to make way for Belloni, who is a uncapped guy getting his, he's played under 20s, going to get his test debut down in South Africa against the number 1 in the world, Springboks. Welcome to international rugby for that fella. And then Lewis Liner is still there on the right wing. Replacements, Dimichev, Spagnolo, and Hassa. Same front row replacements as last week. Canali and Izikor are on the bench. So Izikor drops after starting last week. Odiase continues on. So it's the 6-2 split for the Italians. Vani and Bertaccini are the only 2 back replacements. Stats-wise for this one, the Italians will be happy with their work at the breakdown last week. They won 6 turnovers, which was certainly a big part of keeping them in the game for as long as they were. I mean, they still conceded 42 points, but yeah, not many teams go ahead and win 6 turnovers against the Boks. They're usually very, I don't want to say stingy. What's the word? They're very protective of the ball. You know what I mean? It's hard to get over it with the Boks, and they scored a maul try, even rarer against the Springboks from miles out as well. So I'm sure the Boks would have been working on that. I would not be surprised to see the Springbok pack look to do a bit of a role reversal just to, get the forwards coaches smiling a little bit in South Africa. 17 turnovers conceded. That's an area I think South Africa will certainly want tidied up. I mean, they still had more line breaks. They scored more tries, obviously. They still won the game comfortably enough. But, you know, those teams at the top always have the higher standards. They'll be looking to up those numbers. And it's interesting as well because, like, the South Africa didn't score a maul try last week. If you look at 3 of their top ball carriers, it was Willemse, Creel, and Colby. Like, Visa was up there as well, but they were still getting the ball to the backs a wee bit. So, yeah, it doesn't always fit with the stereotype that people give South African rugby. Predictions-wise, the bookies are saying South Africa by 38. They only scored 42 last week and conceded 24, so that's a big bump up from last week. So they are predicted to, you know, put them more to the sword than what we saw last week. The rugby forecast algorithm is a bit more conservative, saying South Africa by 27. It is on at 5:10 local time over in South Africa, which is like 3 o'clock in the morning for me. I'm probably going to watch it delayed, so apologies if the review video goes up a bit late. It's on America. We don't see that many games played there, so good to see them back in that area of the country. Andrew Brace from Ireland is the ref. Fingers crossed he has a good game. If you want to watch this and some of the other matches on this July and you're in the States, check out Flow Rugby. Down in the description, they've got a bunch of the July tests on, including New Zealand up against France as well, which is an interesting one. The Argentinians up against the English in their game too. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts on the game. Do you see the Boks unleashing for game 2, or do you think the Italians will once again prove to be more of a match than what people thought they would have been? You guys take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.